This is an ABC News Yahoo News live stream. The Democratic National Convention. Live from Charlotte, North Carolina. Here are Amy Walter and Rick Klein.
Yes. Seeing the mayor of Chicago, a man who is known in these circles, of course, that's Rahm Emanuel. We're told reliably that they've checked his speech for potential bleep words, and they're safe. Rahm Emanuel.
From President Obama's hometown of Chicago, it's my honor to speak to you about the president I served. I want to tell you what I saw up close while serving our president in a time of crisis, about the values he leans on and the voices he listens to. When President Obama entered the White House, the economy was in a free fall. The auto industry on its back. The banks frozen up. More than 4 million Americans had already lost their jobs. And America's bravest, our men and women in uniform, were fighting for what soon would be the longest war in our history. You remember the uncertainty and the fear that seized our country. On that first day, I said, Mr. President, which crisis do you want to tackle first? He looked me in the eye with that look he usually reserved just for his chief of staff. Rahm, we were sent here to tackle all of them, not choose between them. There was no blueprint or how-to manual for fixing a global financial meltdown, an auto crisis, 2 wars, and a great recession all at the same time. Believe me, if it existed, I would have found it. Each crisis was so deep and so dangerous, any one of them would have defined another presidency. We faced a once-in-a-generation moment in American history. And fortunately for all of us, we have a once-in-a-generation president. And in those uncharted waters, I saw where the president finds his North Star. Every night, President Obama reads 10 letters from everyday Americans. When I met with the president at the end of each day, he made sure he had their letters to read at his residence. Letters from people just hoping for someone in power to understand their struggles. I can't tell you how many times, whether we were discussing the economy, healthcare, or energy prices, the president would walk to his desk, take out one of the letters, and read them to us and say, this is who we are fighting for. Parents working hard to save for their child's education. Middle-class Americans fighting tooth and nail to hold on to their jobs, their homes, or their life savings. It is their voices that President Obama brings to the Oval Office. It is their values I saw him fight for every day. In the first month in office, he fought for the American Recovery Act to cut taxes for the middle class, to put people to work building America's roads, rails, and runways. And today, our economy has gone from losing 800,000 jobs a month to adding 4.5 million private sector jobs in the last 29 months. Banks are slowly but surely lending again, and never again will taxpayers foot the bill for Wall Street's excesses. In case we forgot, that was the change we believed in, that was the change we fought for, that was the change President Obama delivered. President Obama took office knowing full well that for the last century, presidents had tried to reform our healthcare system. Today, because of President Obama's courage, kids can stay on their parents' plan until they're 26. Insurers can't kick you off your policy because you have a pre-existing limit, because you've hit the pre-existing limit. They won't be able to deny you because you have a pre-existing condition. Because of President Obama's leadership, every American will have access to affordable, quality health care. That was a change we believed in. That was the change we fought for. That was the change President Obama delivered. I saw the president make the tough calls in the Situation Room. And today, our troops in Iraq have finally come home so America can do some nation building here at home. That was a change we believed in. That was a change we fought for. That was a change President Obama delivered. I remember when the president received the report that the auto industry had a few weeks before its collapse. We met in the Roosevelt Room late into the night. Some of the president's advisors said that in order to save General Motors, you had to let Chrysler go under. Others said it's like throwing good money after bad. Among all the experts, there were only guesses, and nobody put it at better than a 1 in 4 shot. Only the president suggested going all in to save the industry and the jobs. Rising above all the voices in Washington, President Obama listened to the voices that mattered to him most, the voices of the auto workers in the communities that depended on them, just like the voices of the steel workers and the communities on the south side of Chicago where he worked earlier in his career. To President Obama, they weren't just companies that needed a loan. They were communities that needed a leader to stand up for them. And because President Obama made the right choice, over 1 million Americans are still working today. The American auto industry is not just surviving, it's thriving. Where Mitt Romney was willing to turn his back on Akron, Dayton, and Toledo, Ohio, the president said, "I've got your back." That was a change we believed in. That was the change we fought for. That was the change President Obama delivered. And in those first few months, the president worked to put accountability into our children's schools with Race to the Top, so that every child has an education that measures up to their full potential. He was willing to demand change and embrace reform. The president never changed his views to suit the moment or the audience, and that is also a measure of leadership. Every challenge was different. Every choice was difficult. But every time, the leadership was steady. Now, the one thing I know with absolute certainty, having served 2 great presidents, is that in the next 4 years, an unforeseen crisis, challenge, or conflict is going to show up and seize this country. Whose leadership, whose judgment, whose values do you want in the White House when that crisis lands like a thud on the Oval Office desk? That's right, a person who said in 4 words, "Let Detroit go bankrupt," or a president who had another 4 words, "Not on my watch."
That is a reception for Mayor Rahm Emanuel, the former White House Chief of Staff. He has kept it clean, and he's gotten the crowd a little going right now. And if you want to continue to watch Mayor Emanuel, you can check it out at abcnews.com. We have all the live streams up. We're going to be streaming all night long, as we have been at abcnews.com, at Yahoo News, also at YouTube, and also on our various mobile devices for ABC News. But we're joined now by Devin Dwyer, who covers the Obama White House and the Obama campaign for us. And Devin, we're learning a little bit about President Obama, what he's doing tonight, how he's preparing a little bit for his speech Thursday night, a family night at the White House, just missing Mom.
That's right. 4 years ago, the president made that surprise appearance on video screen at the DNC. But tonight, it's a family night in. Maybe they're ordering some pizza, but we know they're in the White House residence with the daughters, Malia and Sasha. And we also just found out that Michelle Obama's mom, Marion Robinson, is also going to be there watching with them. So they're all going to be huddled around that TV in about half an hour from now.
Devin, you know this administration better than almost anybody. Do you expect that maybe on that video screen back there we are going to see that family photo, maybe waving to see their mom giving that speech?
I got to believe there's going to be some sort of tease of that family tonight. Definitely. I mean, they're one of the president's biggest selling points, and we hear him talk about his family life, his roots. We're going to hear that expect to hear that from the First Lady tonight, talking about that family. So I wouldn't put it by them if they did that. And the White House sure has that technology too. So.
All right, going to the floor right now is Kal Penn, the actor and activist. We're going to have him on the live stream afterward, some wrap-up coverage in the 11 o'clock hour. So stay tuned. He's bridged both worlds very successfully. And Devin, I want to ask about this speech. It strikes me, George Stephanopoulos earlier said, it may be a mistake for them to go to the open outdoor football stadium because it invites the comparison from 4 years ago. It seems like the Obama campaign is still of two minds about this, still leaving the option of going inside if weather demands it, but also saying over and over again, this is not 2008. Don't expect it to be, and yet they're going to be there in a football stadium accepting the nomination.
It's going to be a big challenge for them to get 75,000 people in there, and I think that's what everybody's watching for. But, they see this really as a grassroots organizing opportunity. I mean, anybody you talk to at the campaign says more than anything else, forget the audience at home. They say it's about organizing Virginia, North Carolina, and getting everybody in that stadium signed up to vote. And, one of the things they do at their rallies that we've been to on the campaign trail is they get everybody to take out their cell phones. They did this in 2008 as well. They hold up your cell phone, text 2262 or whatever, and sign up now. And they immediately have 75,000 new followers and supporters and voters. And you'll see a lot of that on Thursday.
Well, Devin, let's talk about that, though, for a minute. You and your colleague, Mary Bruce, you're on the trail with these guys every day, and noted that it's been a long time since Barack Obama the president has actually been in North Carolina. He's rallying students in Virginia, Iowa, Colorado multiple times. He's only coming here because the convention is here. How much do you think that North Carolina is a real part of the electoral map plan for Democrats? And how much of it is like a nice add-on if they can get it?
I think it's more the latter. I mean, we haven't seen him here since, I think, April 24th, and he was here on an official visit. It's a very long time to stay out of the state. To be fair, the First Lady has been here several times since then, the Vice President as well, but certainly not as much as Iowa, Colorado, even Ohio the past few weeks.
So what is North Carolina about then? Do you think they regret coming here after all that? I know they'll say over and over again, no, we love North Carolina. It's all about North Carolina. They talk about the flow over in Virginia as well, but here we are in North Carolina, a state that really is kind of slipping.
That's right. I think if you go back and look at the map, and the math better than I do, both of you do, you really see that they could lose North Carolina and still win this, and same with Virginia. And so I think, again, if you look at the focus on Iowa, the focus on Colorado, and the focus on Ohio, I think those are the three that they're really counting on to clinch this thing.
Are you surprised that the place that they're going right after this convention is New Hampshire, a state that has 4 electoral college votes, and obviously went for the president last time, but do you think that what sort of message is that supposed to be sending?
It honestly surprised me as well. And then he's going to Iowa again, and we'll see his first visit to Florida in a long time, where he's going to spend 2 days on a bus tour on Saturday and Sunday, driving around the state. But I think that's where they really want to focus their time. I think they kind of want to do a symbolic hit coming out of the convention, kind of touch some of these states. They haven't been to New Hampshire for a few weeks.
What is your sense of the confidence level inside the Obama campaign these days? They've never been lacking, to my mind, in self-confidence about the trajectory of this election, yet they've spent all this money, they're essentially tied.
I think they're supremely confident, Rick. I mean, and that's kind of been their shtick for some time, since 4 years ago. They exude it in everything that they do, and I think we've seen it in the past few weeks in some of these videos the campaign has put out, mocking openly Mitt Romney in ways that we haven't seen in a long time, poking fun at him all last week at his convention. So I think they're very confident, and they openly admit it's going to be a close race. Then they know they aren't going to win every state they won 4 years ago, but I think they're feeling pretty good right now.
And Devin, one thought I want to get from you on the organizing potential for this event. We heard from Ashley Judd earlier today. She's actually an OFA door knocker. Just, fascinated by that. But they claim that they're ahead of where they were 4 years ago in terms of organizing, in terms of the metrics of organizing. Do you buy that? Do you think it's possible, or is it just the power of the presidency that puts them in that position?
I think it's both. They've been talking about it for a long time, being on the ground earlier than they were 4 years ago. Remember, then candidate Obama hadn't even clinched the nomination, so they were sort of playing catch up late, in 2008 before the race. So they've been building this ground game since January, and of course this week we just saw that they topped 3 million donors for the campaign. So they've surpassed the number of donors, even though they're still going to probably lose that money race.
All right, Devin Dwyer, thank you. He's
Great to be with you guys.
Our man on the trail.
He is our man on the trail, and very much our man on the plane as well, covering the campaign. He knows everything about the Obama campaign. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks,
We're just going to take a look down there at Kal Penn.
Kal Penn is wrapping up his speech.
He is now. He also will be joining us. He actually cut an ad for his own live stream show with the President of the United States. We didn't get the President to cut anything for us to encourage people to watch.
No, maybe
we missed that.
Maybe for his next re-election. What do you think?
Maybe, I don't know. That's not really going to work well. But maybe Kal Penn can give us a little love, a little shout out. We'll hear from him. You know, of course, we've seen that. So. I want to now turn to a state that we know is going to be a very important state. It's not just North Carolina, it's Colorado.
Right.
And this is Rick Palacio. Is that the way to
That's
say
right.
it?
Yeah.
We should mention before we get to 1 second here, we're seeing the siblings of the President and First Lady here, Maya Soetoro-Ng and Craig Robinson, of course, Michelle Obama's brother. If we take a couple minutes of this, and we'll get back to Mr. Palacio in a moment.
Sure. Sounds good.
I'm Maya Soetoro-Ng, an educator, mother of 2, and proud to be Barack Obama's little sister.
I'm Craig Robinson, Michelle Obama's big brother, father of 4, and head coach of Oregon State University's men's basketball team. Any 7-footers out there, give me a call.
Craig and I come from different states. We've had different upbringings, and as you can see, we have different perspectives on the world.
But no matter how different we may seem, we share a set of values our parents gave us. Values the same in Chicago as they are in Honolulu. A willingness to work hard, a commitment to education, and the responsibility to look out for each other. They're the values at the core of how Barack and Michelle have lived their lives, raised our nieces, and led this country as President and First Lady of the United States.
4 years ago at this convention, I spoke with you all about how Barack and I didn't grow up with much in the way of wealth. But we were blessed with a mother who taught us that education is the surest path from limited means to limitless opportunity. She inspired me to become a teacher, and she inspired Barack's deep commitment to giving all our young people the opportunities our education gave us. He's made sure more of our youngest children have the stable foundation that Head Start provides. He's saved the jobs of teachers in our schools, and he's helped more of our students afford a higher education. Our mother also taught us that everyone has worth, regardless of who they are or what they believe. That's what inspired Barack's vision for a more inclusive and compassionate America, where everyone has a part to play in our shared story. He's made sure women can fight for equal pay for equal work and stood up for the freedom to make our own decisions about our health. He named 2 brilliant women who understand our lives to the Supreme Court. And I'll say it again, he ended Don't Ask, Don't Tell, so no one would ever have to hide who they love to serve. Making sure everyone in America has a chance to make it like he did, that's what my wonderful big brother is all about, and that's what he'll do for 4 more years.
All right, well, there we have the siblings, of course, of the President and the First Lady making a personal case for why folks should re-elect President Obama. And we're going to move for a second from North Carolina, where we're sitting right now, to another battleground state, the state of Colorado. Also, I will say, one of my favorite states.
One of my favorite states, too.
It's really amazing. So we had your counterpart, Republican chairman of the Colorado Party, on when we were down in Tampa, making the case for why he thinks Colorado will go to Mitt Romney. Tell us why you think that President Obama can carry Colorado once again, because the polls show it is very, very close.
It's going to be a very close election, regardless of what the polls say. There's a lot of work to be done, but we're putting the work into it, and Colorado's going to go for Obama the way that it did in 2008. Listen, we are, as I said, working hard, and this is what it comes down to. Coloradans believe that we need to move forward and not backwards, and that's the choice that we have here.
Forward versus backwards. We've heard that so many times.
Sure.
Yet, we are looking back at the Clinton years with the speech tomorrow night. We're told often about the Bush economy and what we've inherited. What is the forward vision? What do Democrats have to look forward to after 4 years of Obama?
Forward is continuing the job creation that we've seen over the last 3 years. We've had 4.5 million private sector jobs created in the last 3 years. We've seen, by all economic indicators, the economy moving forward, getting people back to work. What we saw in the Bush, and I think it's fair to bring up the Bush years. What we saw under the Bush term was, of course, the last 5 months, 750,000 jobs a month lost. We literally cannot afford to go back to those years, and that's what Mitt Romney is offering.
So what do you say to Mitt Romney, who said at his convention, and I'm sure saying to a lot of those suburban Denver voters there, look, I know you took a chance at electing Barack Obama. He said he was going to do all these things. He hasn't lived up to that promise. How do you say that he has? What has he lived up to in terms of the kind of change and hope that he said he was going to bring to America?
Sure. Coloradans, regardless of where you are, and especially suburban Colorado, suburban metro Denver area, which really is going to go towards Barack Obama. We don't vote for extreme candidates, and what we have in Mitt Romney is really an extreme, out-of-touch candidate. It would take us back on women's health issues, on LGBT rights issues, on healthcare reform. So those are all things that we simply would go backwards, and people see the bold leadership decisions that President Obama has made, and they want to continue on that path.
All right, Rick Palacio, the chairman of the Colorado Democratic Party, thanks for being here. Not quite what it was 4 years ago for you, I'm sure, because we're not in Denver anymore.
Well, we should be in Denver.
I actually could agree with that after the humidity in this city. Okay, Rick, thanks so much. Well, we're going to hear a lot about Julian Castro tonight. Here's a look at the man behind the keynote tonight. We're going to hear a lot about him. Let's take a look right now at what he's about.
A famous shampoo commercial once said, "You never get a second chance at making a first impression." Which is why Julian Castro's keynote address to the Democrats, his first chance on a national stage, offers him an opportunity to sketch out a position of prominence that's head and shoulders above the rest.
Who is Julian Castro? Democrats are sketching the 37-year-old as a rising star, serving his second term as mayor of San Antonio. He's also seen as a crucial voice for the Latino vote that is expected to be more than 12 million strong this presidential election. But who is the country's youngest mayor of a major city?
Have you seen this guy before? Even with this fine interpretation, you're not familiar with who this is? Do you know who's delivering the keynote address?
No, I don't.
Okay. What about that guy? Look familiar?
No, not at all.
Not even remotely. Do you recognize that guy?
No.
Not at all?
Not at all.
Nothing looks familiar?
He
kind of
looks like that golf player.
Not quite.
No.
But you're close.
Ask Charles Barkley what he thinks of Castro. The former NBAer ripped the women of San Antonio, and Castro fired back online with a Texas-size whooping.
You've not always been very kind in describing the women of San Antonio. Maybe that's because we have a very different idea of what a beautiful woman looks like.
Touché. As a second-generation Mexican-American, Castro has become a strong advocate for affirmative action and a major proponent of improving public education. Harvard law grad, husband, and father, Castro has been compared to another famous keynote speaker.
There is not a liberal America and a conservative America. There is the United States of America.
A political star may have been born.
And if this guy is any indication of what's ahead, Castro could be drawing himself a big future in the party. Dan Kleffler, ABC News.
Only 8 years separate Barack Obama from that chair to this one that he's occupying this week. Speaking of that, Matthew Dowd, our ABC News political analyst. And Matthew, this poll tonight, what do you make of it? Some troubling news for President Obama in his favorability rating. We've talked about this as the cushion that he could rely on for so long. Is that going away?
Well, it looks like it's going away. I mean, we saw that, Mitt Romney's convention last week, 4 days. Obviously, the president's been out of the limelight, sort of taken down time, all of that. That this convention has to help improve that number and then advance the cause in that. But it should be troubling to them because the huge advantage, as you said, that they had was the likability gap, and the likability gap has closed rather dramatically.
What should we make of the fact that both of these men who come into their conventions with the lowest favorable ratings that we've seen, certainly in modern polling times, what does that tell us about the electorate, and what does it tell us about the kind of electorate they're going to face in November?
Well, I think that's a great question, Amy. First, I think it tells us how much different this convention is, and the president coming this convention is, than he came into Denver, and the environment that exists in the country. The environment that exists in the country was a huge wave was coming, and he just had to get up on top of that wave and ride it into the White House, and he did it very well. This much different environment, totally different environment, very polarized environment. And so you basically have one side loves their guy, Democrats love Barack Obama, Republicans love Mitt Romney, and they both hate the other guy equally as much as they like their guy, with a very tiny sliver of people in the middle. And so you have this polarized environment where the margin for error for this race is tiny. Probably 3 or 4 points, really, unless something major happens. And that's why I think this convention's really important, is can he move that ball 3 or 4 points in this? As I say, 4 years ago in Denver, get on the wave and ride it. This time, a much different and much more difficult thing he has to do in these 4 days or 3 days.
Matthew, we had John Sununu on the program earlier, and he said, we're done with bounces. This is all about oozing. Colorful metaphor for sure, but is that what we're talking about here? Are we thinking in an outdated term when we think about bounces? Are we just in a tied election that's going to be more oozing than bouncing?
Well, I think a couple of things have gone into that. Obviously, one is the polarized nature of the electorate, where there's very few people in the middle. But two is, as we recall in past history, it's only been recently where we've had these really late conventions jammed up against each other. That's only of recent vintage. It used to be you'd have a convention in July, first week, 2 or 3 weeks later, another convention. So there was time to build that, to demonstrate that bounce. We don't have that anymore, and we've had $400 million in advertising spent, which we never had before. So both candidates are fairly defined. The issues seem fairly clear, and we just have not had that environment where we're already past Labor Day. This is usually the time the general election's starting and going. We're now at a convention post-Labor Day, and so I think the bounces is gone as long as we have conventions set like that.
And I'm going to go something that I know you have a lot of opinions about. Our friends at CMAG, who track ad spending, expect $1.1 billion just in the presidential campaign to be spent. Only a third of that has been spent. So that means they expect 2/3, right? So of that $1.1 billion, 2/3 of it spent between now and November 6th. What kind of effect is that going to have? Just that unbelievable deluge of money.
Oh, the first effect it is having is people are going to use their remote control methodically because most people cannot stand political advertising. That's the first effect. The next effect, I think, is it's going to wash it out, and we've did a study on this after 2004, is the effect of political advertising in a presidential race is reduced anyway. I'm always recall when I look at political advertising what a guy said in commercial advertising. He said 50% of my ad dollars are wasted. I just don't know what 50% are wasted. In politics, I think 80% of ad dollars are wasted. They just don't know which part is it. I just think it's not going to have as much effect. I think the real effect of these campaigns now are in these speeches here, and then come in those 4 debates, the 3 presidential debates and the vice presidential debates. Those will change the nature of this race more than any ad.
All right, ABC's Matthew Dowd, thanks for checking in. We'll see you as the week goes by. Of course, we're going to be here all week long.
Yes, we
ABCnews.com. We're coming up on the primetime hour. That is going to be the key one, Amy. As you know, so much of this campaign needs to communicate. It has to happen at that time. They program this hour so tightly. They know exactly how they want this to go. It's going to be Julian Castro leading things off. Michelle Obama is going to be the cleanup hitter tonight. She is going to be the big one. We've heard a little about this speech. They're saying it's not going to be so much about contrasts with Mitt Romney. They're not sending out there to be any kind of an attack dog. They're sending out there primarily to be a validator for Barack Obama. And middle class is a term we've heard over and over again, talking about middle class values.
They do. They talk about growing the middle class from the middle, actually growing the economy from the middle out, which to me, I don't know that I want to grow from the middle out. That's what I'm trying to avoid.
That's right.
So maybe we can ask our next guest, Congressman Chris Van Hollen, who from the great state of Maryland, of course, Montgomery County, and who also is going to play Paul Ryan in the debates. We talked to you a little bit what was it,
In
like
Tampa?
not even a week ago?
It was a week ago
Down in
tonight.
Tampa.
Yeah, tomorrow night.
And tell us a little bit about the difference between being in Tampa, where you were, I wouldn't say pariah, but you weren't exactly embraced, and coming here.
Well, as I said, I survived the Lion's Den.
All right, so
down
nothing
in Tampa.
happened to you.
It was
after you left
it
our
was a
booth.
great exchange. I survived. I didn't even need a special security detail.
All right.
So, all right, tell us here. Now, you were here 4 years ago, this big moment for Democrats. What is it going to take to get Democrats to approach that level of enthusiasm again?
Well, I think people are very excited. I mean, I've been here now for 24 hours. The excitement is building because we believe we have a really important story to tell to the American people about the progress that we've made from the time the president was elected and the economy was in free fall to the fact that we've had 29 months of positive private sector job growth, not by accident, because the president acted immediately and decisively with the recovery bill and the auto rescue plan. And then the question is, where do you go from here? And as you're just talking, the Republican playbook is pretty clear. They didn't want to talk about it much, but their economic plan, when you take a look at it, is nothing more than a return to this trickle-down, top-down theory of economics that tanked the economy and actually rose. Only thing that went up, of course, was the debt and deficit. Whereas the president, I think you're going to hear, is going to take the balanced approach to deficit reduction, and he is going to grow the economy from both the middle out and the top and the bottom down.
Right. See, I'd like to grow this way, not this way, but that's another story. All right.
Just
so
want to make sure the economy is growing and everyone's participating.
there we go. All right. I got you. Talk to us a little bit about this idea about, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Seems like that was something of a Republican talking point, saying they're very happy to have this debate because they say you can't answer that positively, that when 67% of the people in this country say things are off on the wrong track. Can you really answer yes to that question?
Yes, you can, and for this reason. I think the Republican argument relies on the American people having a collective case of amnesia. But just remember where we were. I mean, the economy was tanking. I mean, we were in a nosedive. I mean, 800,000 jobs every month. 1/3 of people's retirement savings had collapsed between the fall of 2007 and when George Bush left office. So what have we had now? As I said, we've had 29 months of positive private sector job growth, not job losses. People's retirement savings have not only been restored, but they've gained. And I think the question then is, what were Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan proposing? So here's Mitt Romney. He was prepared to bail out Wall Street. He was all for the bank rescue, right? Using taxpayer dollars. Government has a role to help Wall Street. But when it came to the auto industry and American auto workers and manufacturing, you're on your own. He's AWOL. Go bankrupt. Social Security, if we listen to Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan's proposals to privatize Social Security, the little security people have when the bottom dropped out wouldn't even have been there. So these guys are talk a great game, but let's ask them what they would have done. They didn't act. President acted, and now he wants to take us the next step forward.
Lastly, Congressman, is there anything, you're one of the best political minds out there. I'll say it to flatter you. You know the game inside and out. Is there anything you saw last week that you said, okay, I hear what they're doing here. I think we should tweak our messaging a little bit. Is there anything you learned last week as a political strategist that you said, I didn't see that one coming, but here's how we beat them around the bend?
Well, look, they obviously tried to make a big deal about the president's remark about, you didn't build it. And they went to town on that. They totally distorted his comment. I think it's really important to remind people that the president's story and the First Lady's story, who we're going to hear from later tonight, is the story of the American dream. I mean, this notion that the Romney campaign has that they are the believe in Americas, that the president doesn't understand America. The president is one of the most powerful examples to America and the world of the power of the American dream. The difference is he wants to make sure everybody has that opportunity. That's what he means when he says we got to build our economy from the middle out and the bottom up. Rather than we want everybody to participate in this. He knows that. And here you got Mitt Romney wanting to come forward with an economic plan that says, great if you're on third base. I mean, the path to prosperity is great if you're already prosperous under their plan, right? But the reality is what the president says is we're all in this together. And he understands the power of American entrepreneurialism. That's obviously a huge reason why this country is as prosperous as it is. But he also understands we're a great country because we made some common investments. I mean, they talked about Neil Armstrong. Listen. You're not going to put Neil Armstrong on the moon simply by having a lot of bake sales, okay? Bake sales are important. Community involvement is essential. but there are some things we do better together, and that's the president's point.
All right, we heard it here first.
All right.
No bake sales for Man on the Moon missions.
No, but I'm sure
Learn
you,
something.
you buy a lot at the Montgomery County Fair and other big sales,
I
right?
do, and I want to make it really clear. I just got a bunch of lemonade at the lemonade stand the other day at our Kensington at Labor Day Fair. So those are the civic community in our country is essential strength. But I don't think anyone would suggest that the United States has become a major economic power simply by saying people were going to act alone. We need to do some things as a nation together, big things. And that's what the president's talking about. When you're talking about competing with the Chinese and other competitors, you need to do big things together. And that'll be the best step forward.
All right, Chris Van Hollen,
Thank
the
you all
congressman
very
from
much.
Maryland. We appreciate
Thank
you
you. It's
checking in
great
with
to
us
be with you.
twice this week. Behind us is Deval Patrick. I actually heard some of the exact same words about the middle class and growing from the middle out. I think we know what we're talking about. Deval Patrick was the successor to Mitt Romney in the Massachusetts governor's office. If you want to watch his speech, it is streaming at abcnews.com. We are streaming here live our coverage at abcnews.com, at Yahoo News, also at YouTube and on the ABC News mobile devices. We're pleased to be joined now by ABC's Cecilia Vega, who's been on the floor. And Cecilia, we're getting ready for Michelle Obama's big moment.
3 minutes, right?
About 30 minutes or so from now before she takes the stage. Now, they've made an interesting choice in the woman that they're going to have introduce her. Tell us a little bit about the woman, Elaine Bry.
Yeah,
Bry,
Elaine Bry from Ohio, a mother of 5. 4 of her children are in different branches of the military. This is a woman I just talked to her a few minutes ago. I said, you've got this in your blood. I mean, her kids are all in this. Her husband was a career serviceman. Her father was in the service. A really sweet woman. That was the takeaway when I talked to her. And she's a mom. She's like all of our moms, you know.
Well,
and
how did they pick her to do this?
It's so funny. She wrote the First Lady a Christmas card. Probably one of the millions the First Lady gets. She wrote a Christmas card thanking her for all of her work with veterans, and the First Lady responded. Take a listen. We talked to Elaine just a few minutes ago. We got some great sound from her.
And you heard back. All these letters that go to the White House, most people don't get a response. I didn't just get a response. I got an invitation to a state dinner. Is that not crazy?
Are you nervous about tonight at all?
There's a big stage behind you. Of course. But I'm just doing this. I'm doing this for my kids. I'm doing this for all their fellow service members.
So how are you feeling?
I'm excited. I'm overwhelmed. I'm just, this is not something I normally do. I'm just not political. So
you're not political, but you're introducing the First Lady of the United States.
But we're talking about something that really means the world to me, and that's supporting our military and military families.
I said
the state dinner.
Unbelievable story, right?
She goes crazy because she still can't even believe it. She can't believe she's here. I said, you've got to be nervous. She goes, are you kidding me? I'm dying right now to walk up there and speak to all these people. But I said, what are you going to think about when you walk up there? She said, I'm going to think about my kids, and I'm going to think about all the veterans in this country, and I'm going to think about all the sacrifices families like mine, she's telling me this, have made. And then I asked her, so who are you voting for? And she wouldn't say. She said she's not political. She's here because she supports the commander-in-chief because he is that. But sort of a military code of honor, you don't say.
If you can't get a vote after an invitation to the state dinner and it's over, I mean, come on.
You're
What
in
else can you
trouble,
do?
right?
What else can you do? It's an interesting choice, and I suppose they're trying to build up a particular perspective for the First Lady. She's made a lot about military families. That's been a big focus of her. But also to take someone who felt the need to write to the White House and pluck her, happens to be from a battleground state. That's nice, too.
Right, that doesn't hurt at all. And she's just a normal mom. And I think that's a great voting block that they're trying to reach out to right now, right? And she fills that need when she gets out on there in the stage and makes this introduction. We'll see how she does. She says she's nervous. A lot of eyes on her tonight.
Well, Cecilia Vega, thank you very
Thanks,
much.
guys.
And I know that you can, of course, watch more of your interview with her. I know we'll have some of that online. And so get a chance to see the woman who's going to be having her biggest moment in public life ever.
We're watching.
Quite a big moment. Yeah, the White House aides actually say, Amy, that she struck up a friendship with the First Lady as a result of that. They describe it as a friendship. They've had this opportunity to connect a couple of different times and to actually become friends out of this. It is something out of a movie plot and something that clearly the Obama campaign is eager to highlight.
Right, and this idea, again, that you're going to write a letter to the White House.
Yep.
Someone's going to open it, read it, give it to the First Lady. She's going to personally reach out to you. Is really a remarkable story. We're going to switch gears just a little bit now. We're talking to a Republican here in the midst of all of these Democrats, David Avella with GOPAC. works a lot with up-and-coming Republicans at state legislative level, et cetera. But David, I want you to talk a little bit about the money chase here, because we've seen now the Romney campaign. There's talk that they raised $100 million in August. There's talk that the super PACs supporting Romney are going to have a ridiculous amount of money as well. How does that impact this race? And do you think that that's enough to be able to outspend Obama? That's going to be enough to change the contours of this race?
Well, I'm not sure he has to outspend the president's campaign. And when you look at all the liberal groups, Republicans probably won't outspend the president's campaign.
You really don't think that?
When you look at the amount of money the unions are going to spend and the special interest groups and the money that George Soros types will put into the race, plus what the president is raising. Look,
you really believe that? You're going to sit here and tell us? You're really going to tell us that?
Look, the president raises more money than anybody. I mean, he will have every dollar he needs.
You don't think Mitt Romney will have the same?
He will have what he needs. And quite frankly, for Governor Romney, the case is much easier to make given the president's record of the last 4 years. The reality is, and you heard it this weekend, even Democrats can't make the case that we're better off than we were 4 years before the president got started. If you're a kid in college, you got higher student loans. If you're trying to find a job, unemployment's been 8%. Gas prices are higher. Food prices are higher. It's a very hard case, and even Democrats can't make it.
You know, there's a lot of cheering back there for Deval Patrick, a man, of course, who's very close to President Obama. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing on the ground. You go to a lot of these battleground states, work with state legislative candidates. What's your sense in some of these places like Ohio or, Virginia?
Look, Republicans are fired up. Republicans are ready to move on, ready to elect Mitt Romney, ready to defeat Barack Obama. Even in the state of Illinois, recent polling showed at the local level that some of the same numbers we saw in 2010 we're seeing in 2012. I'm not suggesting that President Obama is going to lose his home state. That's not going to happen. But as you start looking down the ballot, and you start looking at Senate races and congressional races and gubernatorial races, it is going to have an impact on what happens. Now, in the presidential race, that enthusiasm in states like Virginia and Colorado, without a doubt, Republicans being fired up helps us. And as we see, the Dems are struggling with keeping their base very motivated.
All right, David Avella from GoPac, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Coming up here on the Primetime Hour, just a few minutes away from 10 p.m. Eastern, we're seeing Martin O'Malley on the stage right now, Amy. And if you want to watch his speech in its entirety, it's there on our website at abcnews.com. Martin O'Malley, we're going to be hearing a lot about 2016 and Martin O'Malley in just a moment or two, I've got to think, about how long before we're going to see Governor O'Malley hit Iowa.
Yeah, well, apparently we've been hearing that the Iowa delegation was getting a lot of visits from figures that don't live in Iowa. Isn't that strange? You would think that, it's not just people who are interested in the agriculture subsidies or wind issues. Or
hard to imagine.
It's very hard to imagine. All right, joining us now to give us her take on what's happening in the social atmosphere, blogosphere, every fear, I don't know what it's called, all of the spheres. Phoebe Connolly from Yahoo. Now, I noticed something, maybe you did too, that Kal Penn apparently asked people to hashtag something, and now it's trending.
Yeah, so Kal Penn, right before he took the stage, did a little setup tweet. And
actually, we have the soundbite, so let's take a look at it.
So before I close, and as I wonder which Twitter hashtags you'll start using when I'm done talking, hashtag sexy face.
So sexy face.
That's what he wanted.
Okay, so what's happened since he said that?
So it peaked on Twitter. At its peak, it got around 2,000 tweets per minute.
How many of them were tied to our live stream? Were you able to go back and find that out? Because we get that a lot. Frankly.
It's true. It's popular.
I want to just credit Kal Penn, honestly. But no, that's interesting. I mean, he goes out there clearly to make a joke. Are people now using it to kind of play off of that a little bit beyond? It's not just Kal Penn now, right?
Right. I mean, that's the thing with the hashtag. It starts with one meaning and then it quickly gets co-opted into something else.
All right, so tell us what else you're seeing out there. I know there was a lot of action today out in front of the convention center. Some people got arrested. There were some famous people in that
mix.
Not arrested, but with the people who were.
So Rosario Dawson was one of them, and photos of her out there holding a sign with the people who were protesting. 13 were eventually arrested. There were several photos that were passed around on Twitter that started trending of people really excited that she was out there with the protesters showing her support for them.
Do we know what they were protesting exactly?
Yeah, it's part of a bus tour that has been traveling across the southern part of the United States around undocumented immigrants.
So tell us what else we're hearing. DNC 2012 is their official is our hashtag. The DNC does not seem to be nearly as active in putting out tweets. I'm just not seeing the hashtags around.
Also, just in the signage in the hall, you're not seeing the hashtag in as many places, I think, as we saw it.
Right, the Republicans made a huge deal out of that. Is it affecting social sentiments at all, or is it less direct?
We're still tracking it right now. It's still early in the convention for us to see. There was, in the past 24 hours, we saw this hashtag Arise, DNC in 4 words, that liberals and conservatives were sort of fighting over to characterize the convention, and they were going back and forth. Again, to this point that, and up on the screen right now, we're seeing the phrases around it, and it's a mix, right? Some of them are clearly sort of positive toward the convention, and others are very critical of liberals and the agenda that is being discussed here.
Wow. Budget, what's a budget? That's an excellent question. I don't know that I can necessarily answer that
Could
either.
you define a budget?
I don't know. I was told that I was asking the questions. Yeah, not the other way around. All right, so tell us, I know you guys were looking for some other kind of cool pictures or things that sort of exemplified the day here in Charlotte. Is there anything else that sort of struck you?
I don't have any other pictures. I do have the DNC released an official app that came out. So
that's right, the app.
For folks that to kind of get on the ground and to figure it out. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of a standard app, but this is the really cool feature of the app. So you can go in there and you can pick the experience you want. One of the options which I picked to show you is the hipster option.
So you have to wear chunky glasses and ride a single-speed bike?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then you can say how much time you have to be a hipster and how far you're willing to travel for this hipster experience, and it will craft a list of things. There's also a Music Lovers one. It's a microphone. I was hoping it was karaoke, but I'm sad to report it's just Music Lovers.
And do we have any idea how many people have downloaded this, or how are they going to ever share that with us, do you think?
I haven't seen download numbers yet, but it's an exciting app for convention goers and for folks at home. You can also follow along.
So any Twitter hijackings that we should report? I mean, hashtags being taken over, the 4 words, that's an interesting one.
I think Cal Penn really is the hijacker of the night.
He won that award. And again, he's on our show tonight, so we'll have to see if he can make us trend, right?
Yeah, what can you do? What have you done for us lately?
What should we ask him
You
to do?
need to come up with the hashtag you want him to get trending for you.
Rick and Amy.
Rick and Amy. Rick and Amy.
If he can achieve that, then I think he deserves an Oscar or whatever they give out for people that jump between those two things. So what else are you tracking at Yahoo tonight at our partner site?
So tonight, we're just we did do a poll on the site in conjunction with ABC News to sort of see kind of what folks were interested in, and we asked them if they thought they were better off now than they were 4 years ago when Barack Obama took office. And it's not looking so great.
What's fascinating about this, though, and this is obviously not a scientific poll, but in our own real scientific polling from ABC and Washington Post, that actually mirrors what we asked the question of, do you think the country's headed in the right direction or off on the wrong track? It's something close to 61%, maybe closer to like 64, 65%, saying off on the wrong track. Very similar margin saying the country's headed on the right track. So actually, it's kind of interesting to see that go together, even though it's a different question. But yes, that's
the question for Thursday night is: will everyone's mobile devices work in the rain?
Well, that's true.
It's a little hard to type on an iPod. If
we can poll on that and see what people. Do you think your cell phone will work on Thursday night?
Do you have a rain plan? All right, Phoebe Connolly from Yahoo News, be checking in throughout the week. Thank you so much. Phoebe, our partners at Yahoo News, also taking our live stream coverage in addition to abcnews.com. We saw behind us now 2 governors in a row taking on different aspects of the Romney record. And one thing I'm interested in seeing how this develops, Amy, we've heard from the beginning this was about the contrast, of course. We haven't seen those speaker after speaker just heap the red meat out there. We've seen them sort of segment it out, steak by steak. They're serving it, and they're giving each of them a different piece of it. And they're telling... We told Governor Strickland to take off the auto industry. They had Governor Patrick take on the Massachusetts record. We even had Ted Kennedy taking on flip-flops, of course, 20 years ago in that old old Senate debate. But I think it's an interesting strategy because rather than just throw out there all at once, they try to take it around the edges, use the different speakers, and try to see if they can get some buzz going.
Well, and that's what they did at the Republican convention as well. You know, the speakers that are before 10 are ones who are speaking to the audience. And, you know, those of you who've been watching, thank you, by the way. I've been sitting here now for, what are we on, like hour 3, still trying to feel my legs.
Just getting warm here.
Yeah, all right.
But
But
again,
anyway.
if you want to, and we should say, because people are just saying this on Twitter the whole time, if you want to watch the speeches, they're right there live streaming
right.
on their website. If you like us more because of the sexy faces or anything else that you're seeing here, please, by all means, keep it
Actually,
clicked
you know,
here.
we should ask, for those of you out there in the blogosphere, atmosphere, Twitter sphere, Facebook sphere, what Twitter hashtag should we ask Kal Penn to have so that we can start trending? That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see.
I want to hear it. As we're seeing Martin O'Malley now leave the stage, we're seeing this sign all over the place. Forward, forward, forward. That is a big theme of this campaign. Not back is, of course, on the other side, the red side.
Gee, I wonder, one is blue and the other is red.
I can't imagine
why.
Now, this is not our keynote speaker. It looks like him. The only way to tell him apart is that he's not married, so there's
That's
no
right.
ring on his finger.
That's right. That's his brother, Joaquin, who is also running for office. He's running for Congress in San Antonio.
Let's take a look
hear
at
him.
Joaquin Castro.
My twin brother, San Antonio Mayor Julian Castro. As you can imagine, this is a very special moment for our family. For each of us, the places that we call home shape our character, inform how we see the world, and inspire our imagination. Julian is a proud Texan. For 18 years, we shared a small room and big dreams in our neighborhood on the west side of San Antonio. Our hometown is a beautiful place, a place of hardworking, humble folks who grind out a living by day and go home and say prayers of thanks to God at night. Since becoming mayor in 2009, Julian has worked tirelessly to pursue policies that honor the aspirations of the people he represents. I'm proud that my brother has achieved his dreams, but I'm even more proud of the work he's done to help others achieve theirs. Today, San Antonio is our nation's 7th largest city, a city on the rise that looks like America tomorrow. Julian's also a dedicated husband to his wife, Erica, a public school teacher, and a wonderful father to his 3-year-old daughter, Karina. So, it's with much love and pride that I present to you my best friend, my twin brother, San Antonio Mayor Julian Castro.
Tonight's gonna be a good night. That tonight's gonna be a good night. That tonight's gonna be a good night.
Thank you.
That tonight's gonna be
Thank you.
a good night. That tonight's
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My fellow Democrats, my fellow Americans, my fellow Texans. I stand before you tonight as a young American, a proud American, of a generation born as the Cold War receded, shaped by the tragedy of 9/11, connected by the digital revolution, and determined to re-elect the man who will make the 21st century another American century, President Barack Obama. The unlikely journey that brought me here tonight began many miles from this podium. My brother Joaquin and I grew up with my mother, Rosie, and my grandmother, Victoria. My grandmother was an orphan. As a young girl, she had to leave her home in Mexico and move to San Antonio, where some relatives had agreed to take her in. She never made it past the 4th grade. She had to drop out and start working to help her family. My grandmother spent her whole life working as a maid, a cook, and a babysitter, barely scraping by, but still working hard to give my mother, her only child, a chance in life so that my mother could give my brother and me an even better one. As my grandmother got older, she begged my mother to give her grandchildren. She prayed to God for just one grandbaby before she died. You can imagine her excitement when she found out her prayers would be answered twice over. She was so excited that the day before Joaquin and I were born, she entered a menudo cook-off and she won $300. That's how she paid our hospital bill. By the time Joaquin and I came along, this incredible woman had taught herself to read and write in both Spanish and English. I can still see her in the room that Joaquin and I shared with her, reading her Agatha Christie novels late into the night. And I can still remember her every morning as Joaquin and I walked out the front door to school, making the sign of the cross behind us, saying, "Que Dios los bendiga." May God bless you. My grandmother didn't live to see us begin our lives in public service, but she probably would have thought it extraordinary that just 2 generations after she arrived in San Antonio, one grandson would be the mayor and the other would be on his way, the good people of San Antonio willing, to the United States Congress. My family's story isn't special. What's special is the America that makes our story possible. Ours is a nation like no other, a place where great journeys can be made in a single generation. No matter who you are or where you come from, the path is always forward. America didn't become the land of opportunity by accident. My grandmother's generation and generations before always saw beyond the horizons of their own lives and their own circumstances. They believed that opportunity created today would lead to prosperity tomorrow. That's the country they envisioned, and that's the country they helped build. The roads and bridges they built, the schools and universities they created, the rights they fought for and won, these opened the doors to a decent job, a secure retirement, the chance for your children to do better than you did. And that's the middle class, the engine of our economic growth. With hard work, everybody ought to be able to get there. And with hard work, everybody ought to be able to stay there and go beyond. The dream of raising a family in a place where hard work is rewarded is not unique to Americans. It's a human dream, one that calls across oceans and borders. The dream is universal, but America makes it possible, and our investment in opportunity makes it a reality. Now, in Texas, we believe in the rugged individual. Texas may be the one place where people actually still have bootstraps. And we expect folks to pull themselves up by him. But we also recognize that there are some things we can't do alone. We have to come together and invest in opportunity today for prosperity tomorrow. And it starts with education. 20 years ago, Joaquin and I left home for college and then for law school. In those classrooms, we met some of the brightest folks in the world. But at the end of our days there, I couldn't help but to think back to my classmates at Thomas Jefferson High School in San Antonio. They had the same talent, the same brains, the same dreams as the folks we sat with at Stanford and Harvard. I realized the difference wasn't one of intelligence or drive. The difference was opportunity. In my city of San Antonio, we get that. So we're working to ensure that more 4-year-olds have access to pre-K. We opened Cafe College where students get help with everything from college test prep to financial aid paperwork. We know that you can't be pro-business unless you're pro-education. We know that pre-K and student loans aren't charity. They're a smart investment in a workforce that can fill and create the jobs of tomorrow. We're investing in young minds today to be competitive in the global economy tomorrow. And it's paying off.
Yes.
Last year, the Milken Institute ranked San Antonio as the nation's top performing local economy, and we're only getting started. Opportunity today, prosperity tomorrow. Now, like many of you, I watched last week's Republican convention, and they told a few stories of individual success. We all celebrate individual success, but the question is, how do we multiply that success? The answer is President Barack Obama. Mitt Romney, quite simply, doesn't get it. A few months ago, he visited a university in Ohio and gave students there a little entrepreneurial advice. Start a business, he said. But how? Borrow money if you have to from your parents, he told them. Gee, why didn't I think of that? Some people are lucky enough to borrow money from their parents, but that shouldn't determine whether you can pursue your dreams. Not in America, not here, not in the 21st century. I don't think Governor Romney meant any harm. I think he's a good guy. He just has no idea how good he's had it. We know that in our free market economy, some will prosper more than others. What we don't accept is the idea that some folks won't even get a chance. And the thing is, Mitt Romney and the Republican Party are perfectly comfortable with that America. In fact, that's exactly what they're promising us. The Romney-Ryan budget doesn't just cut public education, cut Medicare, cut transportation, and cut job training. It doesn't just pummel the middle class, it dismantles it. It dismantles what generations before have built to ensure that everybody can enter and stay in the middle class. When it comes to getting the middle class back to work, Mitt Romney says no. When it comes to respecting women's rights, Mitt Romney says no. When it comes to letting people love who they love and marry who they want to marry, Mitt Romney says no. When it comes to expanding access to good health care, Mitt Romney Actually, Mitt Romney said yes, and now he says no. Governor Romney has undergone an extreme makeover, and it ain't pretty. So here's what we're gonna say to Mitt Romney in November. We're gonna say no. Of all the fictions we heard last week in Tampa, the one I find most troubling is this. If we all just go our own way, our nation will be stronger for it. Because if we sever the threads that connect us, the only people who will go far are those who are already ahead. We all understand that freedom isn't free. What Romney and Ryan don't understand is that neither is opportunity. We have to invest in it. Republicans tell us that if the most prosperous among us do even better, that somehow the rest of us will too. Folks, We've heard that before. First they called it trickle down, then they called it supply side. Now it's Romney Ryan, or is it Ryan Romney? Either way, their theory's been tested. It failed. Our economy failed. The middle class paid the price. Your family paid the price. Mitt Romney just doesn't get it. But Barack Obama gets it. He understands that when we invest in people, we're investing in our shared prosperity. And when we neglect that responsibility, we risk our promise as a nation. Just a few years ago, families that had never asked for anything found themselves at risk of losing everything. And the dream my grandmother held, that work would be rewarded, that the middle class would be there, if not for her, then for her children, that dream was being crushed. But then President Obama took office and he took action. When Detroit was in trouble, President Obama saved the auto industry and saved 1 million jobs. Seven presidents before him, Republicans and Democrats, tried to expand health care to all Americans. President Obama got it done. He made a historic investment to lift our nation's public schools and expanded Pell Grants so that more young people can afford college. And because he knows that we don't have an ounce of talent to waste, the president took action to lift the shadow of deportation from a generation of young, law-abiding immigrants called dreamers. Now it's time for Congress to enshrine in law their right to pursue their dreams in the only place they've ever called home, America. 4 years ago, America stood on the brink of a depression. Despite incredible odds and united Republican opposition, our president took action. And now, we've seen 4.5 million new jobs. He knows better than anyone that there's more hard work to do, but we're making progress. And now, we need to make a choice. It's a choice between a country where the middle class pays more so the millionaires can pay less, or a country where everybody pays their fair share so we can reduce the deficit and create the jobs of the future. It's a choice between a nation that slashes funding for our schools and guts Pell Grants, or a nation that invests more in education. And it's a choice between a politician who rewards companies that ship American jobs overseas, or a leader who brings jobs back home. This is the choice before us. And to me, to my generation, and for all the generations to come, our choice is clear. Our choice is a man who's always chosen us, a man who already is our president, Barack Obama. The American dream is not a sprint or even a marathon, but a relay. Our families don't always cross the finish line in the span of one generation, but each generation passes on to the next the fruits of their labor. My grandmother never owned a house. She cleaned other people's houses so she could afford to rent her own. But she saw her daughter become the first in her family to graduate from college. And my mother fought hard for civil rights so that instead of a mop, I could hold this microphone. And while she may be proud of me tonight, I gotta tell you, Mom, I'm even more proud of you. Thank you. Today, my beautiful wife, Erica, and I are the proud parents of a 3-year-old little girl, Karina Victoria, named after my grandmother. A couple of Mondays ago was her first day of pre-K. And as we dropped her off, we walked out of the classroom, and I found myself whispering to her, as was once whispered to me, que Dios te bendiga. May God bless you. She's still young and her dreams are far off yet, but I hope she'll reach them. As a dad, I'm going to do my part, and I know she'll do hers. But our responsibility as a nation is to come together and do our part as one community, one United States of America, to ensure opportunity for all of our children. The days we live in are not easy ones, but we have seen days like this before, and America prevailed. With the wisdom of our founders and the values of our families, America prevailed. With each generation going further than the last, America prevailed. And with the opportunity we build today for a shared prosperity tomorrow, America will prevail. It begins with re-electing Barack Obama. It begins with you. It begins now. Que Dios los bendiga. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you. Thank you.
That is Mayor Julian Castro, the keynote speaker at the Democratic National Convention, talking about the generational challenges overcoming, casting himself as a success story in the Obama mold, sprinkling in plenty of references to both men who are running for president, including, of course, that the way to complete this journey and complete this vision is to re-elect Barack Obama.
Well, it's funny if you look at the two keynote speakers and contrast what their messages were. You know, you had Chris Christie, who as the keynote speaker came out and said, America's got to make tough choices. I'm going to tell you the truth. We're gonna have to just, you know, do the tough things. Now you have Julian Castro coming out and saying, you know what, this isn't about just what he called sort of an individual kind of story, that this isn't about, yes, there's sacrifice there, but really what we need to focus on is what government can do to help all of us move forward. So it was a really, I mean, to put the two of them next to each other would have been a fascinating look at, really, I think they epitomize the choices for Americans here about the role that they see the government playing.
Let's get some thoughts from Jordan Fabian of Univision. This is, of course, a highly anticipated speech here at the convention, especially in the Latino community. What did you make of it? Where there's something memorable there you think is going to live on?
Yeah, I think it was a very good speech. A lot of people were comparing it to Obama's speech in 2004, which I think is pretty hard to live up to. But I think his family story is extremely memorable. He had some very Obama-esque lines talking about how his family story is not exceptional, but America made it possible. I thought a lot of that was very uplifting, but at the same time, he was able to balance that with a lot of themes from this campaign, obviously hitting Romney very hard, but at the same time coming across with a warm personality. Again, I thought it was very good, and he has a bright future ahead of himself.
So, what do you think the role that Julian Castro was tasked to play there? I mean, it seems like he did more than just simply come out and try to make the case for Barack Obama. Remember, Chris Christie was criticized for not speaking enough about Mitt Romney. Instead, he seems to be speaking more about the general themes of the Democratic Party. So, was his goal to set up the debate, the choice, or was it really to try to set himself up as being a buzzed about future leader for the party?
I think it was a little bit of both. I mean, don't you agree? I think he mixed a lot of it in there. And I think for Democrats, he's kind of like a happy warrior almost. You know, he was very light with that the joke he made against Romney on healthcare, talking about an extreme makeover. I thought that went over very well here. But at the same time, I think this gives Democrats someone to look forward to. The fact is, they don't have a really deep bench for 2016, and you know, this is one of the people they might be looking at in the future. Obviously, it's a very tough path ahead of himself. Being from Texas, a very red state, you know, where's the path up from here? So these are all questions to consider coming out of the convention.
We're seeing signs being distributed throughout the auditorium. We love Michelle. Of course, that's for the big event that is upcoming here. There have been signs throughout. We have some in the booth here.
We do have our.
Reaching for them.
These are the things
show and tell.
It is a little bit of show and tell, and you know, every campaign, you got to get a little souvenir of what it was. What the campaign was about. We all try to keep these.
This is so confusing, though, because I feel like they say the same thing, kind of, sort of.
But see, this one says forward, and,
but not
this one
back,
says not
blue,
back.
red.
See, blue, red. We know
There's
what
a
that
lot
forward
going on
is supposed to mean.
Jordan, back on Mayor Castro for a moment. It strikes me watching that speech. This was not an Obama-type moment in a brand new message that defines a new era. This is by its nature is that making the case for a president's re-election. It's hard to be as proactive in defining a new era. I feel like Mayor Castro gave a very effective speech and certainly a passionate speech, but it didn't have, to me, the kind of soaring thematics that an Obama speech 04 did.
I agree with you. Jim Messina, the campaign manager, said before this, you know, when you look back 10 years from now, you're going to remember this speech. I think it's kind of hard to agree with that. And like you said, when you're focusing on somebody else, it's hard to make the case. But at the same time, I know for Latinos, this speech was so highly anticipated. And I think he really did a good job establishing himself as someone who Latinos, you know, which is a voting group that's growing, but still has a lot of untapped potential. I think they can look to him as a figure, you know, that can sort of represent the community going forward. So I think there's some of that, but he's going to have to do a lot more before he actually accomplishes that goal.
Yeah, no, I think that was a bar that was not really fair to set. But just in terms of what he can do in terms of motivating and turning out the Latino vote, I think that's going to be critical. Tell us what you're hearing, though, as you're talking to Latinos out there, especially voters, about this so-called enthusiasm gap, where we see that Barack Obama doing very well among Latino voters, and yet at the same time we're hearing that they just aren't quite as motivated to turn out. So they may say they would vote for him, but getting him to the polls is a whole different story.
Sure thing. I mean, you always hear about two things when you talk to Latino voters. I mean, obviously they've been really hard hit by the economy more than anyone else. We talked about this at the Republican convention. They lost so much of their household wealth. The jobless rate's extremely high. You always see that from him. We had a reporter actually go to Wisconsin to report from the Latino community there, and she said she talked to a voter who said even though you know, we disagree with Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan on immigration, the one bugaboo you always hear about with Republicans, I just can't vote for Barack Obama again. And there's still also disappointment over the lack of progress on immigration, and that's obviously debatable who's responsible for that. So those are the two things you hear. But at the same time, you know, if you look at someone like Castro, they see him on television, maybe they say, hey, you know, the Democratic Party is you know, trying to go for us. And
you see that figure in the background? That's Michelle Obama doing push-ups, some lighter moments from this. If you want to watch this video in its entirety, it's streaming on our website at abcnews.com. We will bring you Michelle's speech in its entirety when it comes up. Jordan Fabian from Univision. Is there angst? Is there concern in the Latino community about the lack of bench, as you put it, that there doesn't seem to be a big generation of rising stars? We met two of them tonight in the Castro brothers.
Yes.
But they're really, so a lot of the speakers we saw, even Latino speakers today, are of another generation. They're on their way out, on the way in.
And the thing is that the biggest rising stars among Latino politicians are all in the Republican Party. Not all, but obviously most. We saw those people on stage, you know, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Susana Martinez, and you know, they're obviously in positions that are a little bit higher than Castro, which could set themselves up for a presidential run down the road, either governors or senators. Again, Castro faces a really tough road ahead in Texas. You know, does he take an appointment in the Obama administration and then come back and run later? You know, who knows? It's really tough to say.
But Democrats have said for a long time now, the demographics are working for us in Texas. It's just a matter of time, and that ultimately the next election is going to be the one where this idea that Texas is just too tough for Democrats is going to go away.
Well, in the future, maybe 10, 20 years down the road. You know, I was in
San Antonio. 10 or 20 years? It's going to take that long?
Absolutely, yeah. I think you face some extremely tough issues. When I was down there in San Antonio talking to Julian, I asked him straight up, why aren't Latinos in Texas voting? And what he told me is that the population there is extremely young. So obviously they're not of voting age. And there's really been a traditional lack of engagement there because Democrats see Texas as a red state, so they write it off. They don't invest resources there, reaching out to the Latino vote. And Castro said, quite frankly, they have to do a lot more in order to untap that potential. He gave me one really telling statistic. Arizona, which obviously had the big immigration fight, Latino registration there jumped 40 or 50% in the last 2 years. In Texas, it fell by 4%. So even as the Latino population is rapidly growing there, they're not registering the voters and getting them out.
All right, Jordan Fabian from Univision, appreciate your perspectives tonight. A big night for the Latino community, a big night for Mayor Castro. We're gonna dip into this introductory video that's being put together by the Obama campaign for Michelle Obama. We're moments away from Michelle Obama right now.
Please welcome Elaine Bry from Winona, Ohio.
Wow. What's a mom like me doing in a place like this? I'm not even a political person, but what I am is a military mom. My husband and I are so proud of our 5 kids, one each in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Marines. Our youngest is still in high school, and yes, we are hoping he will join the Coast Guard. They are a mom's most precious treasures. And I don't know when I'm going to get them together again because one of them is always deploying. But because of Dr. Biden and the First Lady, our lives are a little bit easier. Along with President Obama, they have made helping military families a top priority. They've brought together the American people, including thousands of businesses, to become part of a nationwide support network. It is honor and respect in action, and it warms this mother's heart. Last December, I wrote Michelle Obama a Christmas card, just a mom-to-mom note to say thank you for caring. The First Lady not only read my letter, she invited my husband and I to the White House. It was an amazing experience, but what's even more amazing is knowing that our Commander-in-Chief and First Lady are thinking about families like mine every single day. So, like I said, I'm not a political person, but I'm a mom. And if someone is there for my family and families like mine, then I'll be there for them. That's why I am so proud to introduce my fellow mom and our First Lady, Michelle Obama. by thanking Elaine. Elaine, thank you so much. We are so grateful for your family's service and sacrifice, and we will always have your back. Over the past few years as First Lady, I have had the extraordinary privilege of traveling all across this country, and everywhere I've gone and the people I've met and the stories I've heard, I have seen the very best of the American spirit. I have seen it in the incredible kindness and warmth that people have shown me and my family, especially our girls. I've seen it in teachers in a near bankrupt school district who vowed to keep teaching without pay. I've seen it in people who become heroes at a moment's notice, diving into harm's way to save others, flying across the country to put out a fire, driving for hours to bail out a flooded town. And I've seen it in our men and women in uniform and our proud military families. In wounded warriors who tell me they're not just gonna walk again, they're gonna run, and they're gonna run marathons. In the young man blinded by a bomb in Afghanistan who said simply, I'd give my eyes 100 times again to have the chance to do what I have done and what I can still do. Every day, the people I meet inspire me. Every day they make me proud. Every day they remind me how blessed we are to live in the greatest nation on earth. Serving as your First Lady is an honor and a privilege. But back when we first came together 4 years ago, I still had some concerns about this journey we'd begun. While I believed deeply in my husband's vision for this country, and I was certain he would make an extraordinary president, like any mother, I was worried about what it would mean for our girls if he got that chance. Now, how would we keep them grounded under the glare of the national spotlight? How would they feel being uprooted from their school, their friends, and the only home they'd ever known? See, our life before moving to Washington was filled with simple joys. Saturdays at soccer games, Sundays at grandma's house, and a date night for Barack and me was either dinner or a movie, because as an exhausted mom, I couldn't stay awake for both. And the truth is, I loved the life we had built for our girls, and I deeply loved the man I had built that life with, and I didn't want that to change if he became president. I loved Barack just the way he was. You see, even back then, when Barack was a senator and a presidential candidate, to me, he was still the guy who picked me up for our dates in a car that was so rusted out, I could actually see the pavement going by in a hole in the passenger side door. He was the guy whose proudest possession was a coffee table he'd found in a dumpster, and whose only pair of decent shoes was a half size too small. But see, when Barack started telling me about his family, see, now that's when I knew I had found a kindred spirit, someone whose values and upbringing were so much like mine. You see, Barack and I were both raised by families who didn't have much in the way of money or material possessions, but who had given us something far more valuable: their unconditional love, their unflinching sacrifice, and the chance to go places they had never imagined for themselves. My father was a pump operator at the city water plant, and he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when my brother and I were young. And even as a kid, I knew there were plenty of days when he was in pain. And I knew there were plenty of mornings when it was a struggle for him to simply get out of bed. But every morning, I watched my father wake up with a smile, grab his walker, prop himself up against the bathroom sink, and slowly shave and button his uniform. And when he returned home after a long day's work, my brother and I would
would stand at the top of the stairs of our little apartment, patiently waiting to greet him, watching as he reached down to lift one leg and then the other to slowly climb his way into our arms. But despite these challenges, my dad hardly ever missed a day of work. He and my mom were determined to give me and my brother the kind of education they could only dream of. And when my brother and I finally made it to college, nearly all of our tuition came from student loans and grants, but my dad still had to pay a tiny portion of that tuition himself. And every semester he was determined to pay that bill right on time, even taking out loans when he fell short. He was so proud to be sending his kids to college, and he made sure we never missed a registration deadline because his check was late. You see, for my dad, that's what it meant to be a man. Like so many of us. That was the measure of his success in life, being able to earn a decent living that allowed him to support his family. And as I got to know Barack, I realized that even though he had grown up all the way across the country, he'd been brought up just like me. Barack was raised by a single mom who struggled to pay the bills and by grandparents who stepped in when she needed help. Barack's grandmother started out as a secretary at a community bank, and she moved quickly up the ranks, but like so many women, she hit a glass ceiling. And for years, men no more qualified than she was, men she had actually trained, were promoted up the ladder ahead of her, earning more and more money while Barack's family continued to scrape by. But day after day, she kept on waking up at dawn to catch the bus, arriving at work before anyone else, giving her best without complaint or regret. And she would often tell Barack, so long as you kids do well, Bear, that's all that really matters. Like so many American families, our families weren't asking for much. They didn't begrudge anyone else's success or care that others had much more than they did. In fact, they admired it. They simply believed in that fundamental American promise that even if you don't start out with much, if you work hard and do what you're supposed to do, you should be able to build a decent life for yourself and an even better life for your kids and grandkids. That's how they raised us. That's what we learned from their example. We learned about dignity and decency, that how hard you work matters more than how much you make, that helping others means more than just getting ahead yourself. We learned about honesty and integrity, that the truth matters, that you don't take shortcuts or play by your own set of rules. And success doesn't count unless you earn it fair and square. We learned about gratitude and humility, that so many people had a hand in our success, from the teachers who inspired us to the janitors who kept our school clean. And we were taught to value everyone's contribution and treat everyone with respect. Those are the values that Barack and I and so many of you are trying to pass on to our own children. That's who we are. And standing before you 4 years ago, I knew that I didn't want any of that to change if Barack became president. Well, today, after so many struggles and triumphs and moments that have tested my husband in ways I never could have imagined, I have seen firsthand that being president doesn't change who you are. No, it reveals who you are. To see up close and personal what being president really looks like. And I've seen how the issues that come across a president's desk are always the hard ones. You know, the problems where no amount of data or numbers will get you to the right answer. The judgment calls where the stakes are so high and there is no margin for error. And as president, you're going to get all kinds of advice from all kinds of people. But at the end of the day, when it comes time to make that decision as president, all you have to guide you are your values and your vision and the life experiences that make you who you are. So when it comes to rebuilding our economy, Barack is thinking about folks like my dad and like his grandmother. He's thinking about the pride that comes from a hard day's work. That's why he signed the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, to help women get equal pay for equal work. That's why he cut taxes for working families and small businesses and fought to get the auto industry back on its feet. That's how he brought our economy from the brink of collapse to creating jobs again, jobs you can raise a family on, good jobs, right here in the United States of America. When it comes to the health of our families, Barack refused to listen to all those folks who told him to leave health reform for another day, another president. He didn't care whether it was the easy thing to do politically. No, that's not how he was raised. He cared that it was the right thing to do. He did it because he believes that here in America, our grandparents should be able to afford their medicine. Our kids should be able to see a doctor when they're sick. And no one in this country should ever go broke because of an accident or an illness. And he believes that women are more than capable of making our own choices about our bodies and our health care. That's what my husband stands for. When it comes to giving our kids the education they deserve, Barack knows that, like me and like so many of you, he never could have attended college without financial aid. And believe it or not, when we were first married, our combined monthly student loan bill was actually higher than our mortgage. Yeah, we were so young, so in love, and so in debt. And that's why Barack has fought so hard to increase student aid and keep interest rates down, because he wants every young person to fulfill their promise and be able to attend college without a mountain of debt. So in the end, for Barack, these issues aren't political, they're personal. Because Barack knows what it means when a family struggles. He knows what it means to want something more for your kids and grandkids. Barack knows the American dream because he's lived it. And he wants everyone in this country, everyone, to have the same opportunity, no matter who we are or where we're from or what we look like or who we love. He believes that when you've worked hard and done well and walked through that doorway of opportunity, you do not slam it shut behind you. No, you reach back and you give other folks the same chances that help you succeed. When people ask me whether being in the White House has changed my husband, I can honestly say that when it comes to his character and his convictions and his heart, Barack Obama is still the same man I fell in love with all those years ago. Yeah. He's the same man who started his career by turning down high-paying jobs and instead working in struggling neighborhoods where a steel plant had shut down, fighting to rebuild those communities and get folks back to work. Because for Barack, success isn't about how much money you make, it's about the difference you make in people's lives. He's the same man when our girls were first born would anxiously check their cribs every few minutes to ensure that they were still breathing, proudly showing them off to everyone we knew. You see, that's the man who sits down with me and our girls for dinner nearly every night, patiently answering questions about issues in the news, strategizing about middle school friendships. That's the man I see in those quiet moments late at night, hunched over his desk, poring over the letters people have sent him. The letter from the father struggling to pay his bills, from the woman dying of cancer whose insurance company won't cover her care, from the young people with so much promise but so few opportunities. And I see the concern in his eyes. And I hear the determination in his voice as he tells me, you won't believe what these folks are going through, Michelle. It's not right. We've got to keep working to fix this. We've got so much more to do. I see how those stories our collection of struggles and hopes and dreams. I see how that's what drives Barack Obama every single day. And I didn't think that it was possible, but let me tell you, today, I love my husband even more than I did 4 years ago, even more than I did 23 years ago when we first met. Let me tell you why. See, I love that he has never forgotten how he started. I love that we can trust Barack to do what he says he's gonna do, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Yeah, I love that for Barack, there is no such thing as us and them. He doesn't care whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or none of the above. He knows that we all love our country, and he is always ready to listen to good ideas. He's always looking for the very best in everyone he meets. And I love that even in the toughest moments, when we're all sweating it, when we're worried that the bill won't pass and it seems like all is lost. See, Barack never lets himself get distracted by the chatter and the noise. No, just like his grandmother, he just keeps getting up and moving forward with patience and wisdom and courage and grace. He reminds me that we are playing a long game here, and that change is hard, and change is slow, and it never happens all at once, but eventually we get there. We always do. We get there because of folks like my dad, folks like Barack's grandmother, men and women who said to themselves, I may not have a chance to fulfill my dreams, but maybe my children will. Maybe my grandchildren will. See, so many of us stand here tonight because of their sacrifice and longing and steadfast love, because time and again, they swallowed their fears and doubts and did what was hard. So today, when the challenges we face start to seem overwhelming or even impossible, Let us never forget that doing the impossible is the history of this nation. It is who we are as Americans. It is how this country was built. And if our parents and grandparents could toil and struggle for us, if they could raise beams of steel to the sky, send a man to the moon, connect the world with the touch of a button, then surely we can keep on sacrificing and building for our own kids and grandkids, right? And if so many brave men and women could wear our country's uniform and sacrifice their lives for our most fundamental rights, then surely we can do our part as citizens of this great democracy to exercise those rights. Surely we can get to the polls on Election Day and make our voices heard. And blacksmiths could win independence from an empire, if immigrants could leave behind everything they knew for a better life on our shores, if women could be dragged to jail for seeking the vote, if a generation could defeat a depression and define greatness for all time, if a young preacher could lift us to the mountaintop with his righteous dream, and if proud Americans can be who they are and boldly stand at the altar with who they love, then surely we can give everyone in this country a fair chance at that great American dream. Because in the end, more than anything else, that is the story of this country. The story of unwavering hope grounded in unyielding struggle. That is what has made my story and Barack's story and so many other American stories possible. And let me tell you something, I say all of this tonight, not just as First Lady, no, not just as a wife. You see, at the end of the day, my most important title is still Mom in Chief. My daughters are still the heart of my heart and the center of my world. But let me tell you, today I have none of those worries from 4 years ago, no. Not about whether Barack and I were doing what was best for our girls. Because today, I know from experience that if I truly want to leave a better world for my daughters and for all of our sons and daughters, if we want to give all of our children a foundation for their dreams and opportunities worthy of their promise, if we want to give them that sense of limitless possibility, that belief that here in America, there is always something better out there if you're willing to work for it, then we must work like never before. And we must once again come together and stand together for the man we can trust to keep moving this great country forward. My husband, our president, Barack Obama. Thank you. God bless you. God bless America.
Michelle Obama getting a rousing ovation from the crowd here at the DNC. Her brother's husband, her sister-in-law there, tearing up at the last few sentences when she talked about her family and, of course, her love for her daughters, the fact that she says her most important title mom in chief. This is a woman who really, she came onto the political world it's pretty amazing, only 4 years ago. And now she's able to do that.
Amy, if you're looking for transcendent moments in this convention, I don't think you're going to find many that top this. This speech to me felt like true love between a husband and wife, and an American story, a shared experience of a story. I think very moving at times, very genuine, very heartfelt, and I think connecting a lot of dots for people.
You know what was the most remarkable to me is if you can see the stage, it's very big. The speaker is there in the middle alone. There are thousands and thousands of people. There are obviously millions of people
and to
watching
take a look,
at home.
that was one person who was watching at home as well, home of the White House.
That's right. But it felt like a very intimate speech, didn't it? I mean, that's where she was able to really hit it, I thought, very well, is she was talking to you individually.
I think that's right, and I think from the perspective of the campaign, this was a very personal speech, yet a strangely political speech, if you get down to it, because the way the biography tied together, it was to make the case for Barack Obama as president.
That's right, and to make a case, as they've been saying throughout this convention, that we are the party that looks out for the middle class. We are the party that's there to make sure that those people who don't have a safety net or don't have, some of the resources as others are protected. That was the case she was trying to make tonight. Basically, this was a woman telling a love story, much like the love story that America did have at one point with Barack Obama, and saying, trying to get them back to say, I fell in love with them, and now I want you to fall back.
One line that struck out at me, I love my husband even more than I did 4 years ago. I don't know if there's any in the crowd who'd say the same necessarily, but I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it for a moment, and I don't think anyone watching tonight would doubt that.
I think that's exactly right. And I think what we're going to see, of course, is a lot of comparisons to the Ann Romney speech with Michelle Obama. Again, both of them did a very good job of making the case for why their husbands are, in their minds, of course, the most wonderful men on earth, and they told their love stories.
That's right.
And we got a real person. It seems like, look, we know some of the stories that Michelle Obama shared because we've heard them over and over again. We didn't know so much about the Ann Romney story. But again, this is a woman who was not out here trying to make people fall in love for the first time with their husband. It was trying to make the case for why they needed to keep that hope, keep that spark alive, even though, of course, it's dimmed since the last time these guys were all together in Denver.
We'll get some thoughts in a moment from Jake Tapper and Cokie Roberts on the floor. We're joined now by Yahoo News' Chris Moody. Chris, thoughts in watching this speech? Quite an emotional moment, the high point certainly of tonight.
Well, she hit all the right notes that she was supposed to tonight. She made it personal, as you all said. Basically, the pitch was, I'm still in love with him, and you should be too. You should join me in this. My main question is, where was the energy last week in Tampa with the Republicans? Not just with Ann Romney, but with the candidate, Mitt Romney. In the entire 3 days that we were there in Tampa, I never saw any kind of energy like we saw tonight here.
Yeah, well, I think what we saw in Tampa was much more about, this was energy for the ideas and the policies and the party. This is much more personality-driven here in Charlotte. Tell us what you think in terms of her ability to weave in the personal and the political. It seems like she got in, without even ever mentioning his name, she was able to get in some barbs at Mitt Romney.
Well, I think if you compare it to how she spoke 4 years ago, when she seemed perhaps a little bit nervous, she's had a lot of practice at this. She's been able to travel all across the country telling the story about her husband. And tonight was the crescendo, I believe, of that, the climax of the crescendo there, where she really nailed it in a way that she needed to tonight.
The shared experience, I counted 9 references to, she used the phrase so many, as in so many of us. It was about this shared, quintessentially American experience, me and Barack, what we did. We're going to go down to the floor now to get some thoughts from Jake Tapper. Jake, what was it like being in that sea of delegates as this speech built through?
Well, it was obviously a very emotional speech, and Michelle Obama is beloved. Obviously, a very well-delivered speech. I'm struck at how good both Michelle Obama and Ann Romney are as public speakers, given the fact that they've never run for anything. They're both really good when it comes to pausing and working off the crowd and revealing their emotions and letting the speech guide them. It was really quite a thing. I think Michelle Obama's speech was strong for a few reasons. One of the things that she accomplished, and we talked about this earlier tonight, was that she was going to be testifying about her husband's empathy, how he was not only of the middle class and shared the values of people, but that's what motivated him. That's why he did what he did, whether it had to do with health care or whether it had to do with the Lilly Ledbetter Act. That's what he did. But what was also interesting is she was drawing a character portrait of her husband that it was not difficult to discern how they view it as different from the character portrait they would draw of Mitt Romney. You had Barack Obama, who didn't measure success in terms of how much money he made, but how many people he helped. You had Barack Obama thinking that once you walk through the door of opportunity, you don't slam it shut behind you. You reach behind and bring others with you. One of the first things he did, Michelle Obama testified, was talking about after law school, he didn't get a high-paying job. He went to help people who were from a steel mill that had closed down. Kind of a contrast from some other steel mills we've heard about this election season. So I think on one level it was a very emotional speech and testimony about her husband's values. But on another level, you could see the contrasts that were being drawn with the president's opponent, Mitt Romney, in terms of the kind of values and priorities they have, at least professionally. Rick?
Thanks to Jake Tapper. Cokie Roberts, I believe we have Cokie standing by on the floor as well. Cokie, are you getting us? We're going to get Cokie in just 10 seconds or so. In the meantime, Chris Moody, once again, Chris, your feeling about this? I think Jake is onto something very critical here. That this was about Mitt Romney without ever saying his name. Somehow she was able to make that choice argument without even getting into the weeds of politics.
Well, I think the case that she made that neither the president nor I came from wealthy families. We built ourselves up. We had to rely on. They made it very clear that at many times in their life, they individually had to rely on the same type of government aid that they're fighting to keep now for future generations. And by weaving that personal story and personal reliance on the policies that they're advocating, I think they make a very strong case to the people that were here at the convention and possibly even to the people.
Although
who are
I don't
home.
think Ann Romney ever mentioned Obama, did she? But she was able to get in some mentions about we built this and things like that. So they both were able to do that very subtly.
I think that's right. ABC's Cokie Roberts is standing by, and Cokie, you are down near the convention stage. Are you seeing any dry eyes in your neighborhood over there? Quite an emotional high point.
No, very, very much so, particularly as she wound up talking about her daughters. But I think that this was, obviously this was a crowd very ready to love this First Lady. But she brought it home for them, and she talked about the president as somebody that people could recognize. And that's really important, even though Barack Obama has been president. He has seemed somewhat aloof. His enemies have characterized him as somehow the other, not one of us in a way, and she just turned that all around, and by implication made Mitt Romney seem really the other, because the Barack Obama was kind of the person you could recognize as a middle-class American, and then someone who cared deeply about the Americans who are suffering now, and I think that was what she needed to do, and she did it.
Cokie, tell us a little bit about the reaction to Julian Castro, who seemed to be making a similar case here. They seem to be trying to set up a story here that Republicans just have an every man for yourself kind of agenda. We're the only people that are looking out for the folks who weren't born with a silver spoon in their mouth.
Right, and that's really been a theme all night here, that the Republicans would just leave you on your own, and that the Democrats it's back to Hillary Clinton's "it takes a village," that they will, that the whole community will support each other, and that we're all in this together. I think that's a powerful message. It's one that you have to be careful about as Democrats, because the question then is, does that mean government? Does that mean taxes? Things that people don't like so much. But the idea of a community spirit is something that's very appealing to most Americans. They also did tie it all night long to policies, and the ones that we heard over and over again tonight were women's rights both in terms of the workforce and in terms of reproductive rights. And we heard an awful lot about gay rights. Every single speech talked about being able to love who you wanted to love and marry who you love. So there's no shying away from some of the things that have been controversial in the Democratic platform. Quite the contrary, they're going for it full out, for the women, for gays, and also a lot on immigration and the DREAM Act. So I think the Democrats are staking out their ground pretty clearly.
And Koki, a point that our friend and colleague Chris Moody made a few moments ago, that you're hard-pressed to find a moment in Tampa last week that met this for emotional intensity. How did this rate in terms of the high points of last week's convention, tonight's speech by Michelle Obama?
Well, first of all, it's just this hall is much better in terms of getting people up and excited and emotional. There are delegates everywhere. There are thousands of them. There's something like 13,000 of them, and the ones from the president and the vice president and the host states, so Illinois, Delaware, and North Carolina, are seated up front, and then on the floor the others are, well, battleground states. Not a surprise. Iowa, Colorado, but then all the bleachers are filled with delegates. So it's not just people coming to watch or members of the press, it's excited Democrats who are here. And they've handed out signs for all the speeches, forward, not back, opportunidad, we love Michelle, and they shake the shines and scream. So there's a lot going on in here that is easier to show excitement and exuberance than was true in that hall in Tampa.
All right, ABC's Koki Roberts checking things out from the second best vantage point we've decided in the hall, second only to ours, and thank you so much for your insights tonight. You've been very helpful, and we'll check back with you tomorrow night. We're back here in the booth with Chris Moody from Yahoo News. And Chris, Jake made the point, someone who isn't very political, who just made a heck of a speech to the convention here. And I think this metaphor of the door not shutting behind you after you get through is critical, because I think Jake's right. That has a lot to do with Mitt Romney, if you parse that language just a little bit.
Well, this is something that Barack Obama has been talking about for a long time, and something he's actually taken a lot of heat on. The speech he gave, where the infamous "you didn't build that," is based upon the idea that we need to keep investing in certain things that the government provides for future generations, just as past generations provided the groundwork for us to build our businesses, and that's what Obama has been saying this whole time. And obviously he'll probably say it a little bit more carefully this time, but I think closing the door and keeping the door open is something that they're certainly going to continue talking about.
Well, and the question is, are they building up then to make some specific and answer some specific policy prescriptions and answer some specific criticisms about the role of government, and whether you think that's what President Obama has to do on Thursday?
I have a feeling they're going to keep it just about as vague as Mitt Romney kept it last week, and keep it about the big philosophical ideas, as you put it, as the role of government. I can't imagine we'll get anything too specific, or something that could distract from what they have going on right now, but I could be wrong.
And we're told that Kal Penn is en route to our booth, so the hashtag games are beginning. He got the sexy face hashtag going. We're going to ask him to get something else going for us now, because that was obviously our hashtag first.
Yeah, it was. He totally stole that.
Now, I did watch Harold and Kumar Christmas just the other night and really enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite ones of the three.
All right. Chris Moody from Yahoo News. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate it.
So yes, Amy, as we get Kal Penn ready to jump in here, I think this is going to be remembered for quite some time. It's hard for me to remember another speech by a candidate's wife, by a first lady, that had this kind of raw emotional appeal. The love that I think was so evident throughout this speech. I I just think it's important to remember this is a woman who isn't political, but yet is tasked with giving, by its nature, a political speech, and really, really delivered for the moment. And I think hits exactly the themes that the Obama campaign needed.
All right, well, we are very happy now to be joined by Kal Penn, the man who now is going to make us trending.
Well, we have a bone to pick because you stole our hashtag.
Thank you.
What
was your hashtag?
We had sexy face like
we
2 weeks
man.
ago.
We were totally,
like, yeah.
I mean, look at us. Honestly, is it that surprising?
Did you copyright it?
Dude,
Man.
It's Twitter. You're supposed to retweet, whatever.
I know.
So we've been asking people to think of what's the kind of hashtag that could get some pickup.
Sure.
If we, now that sexy face is taken, what do you think? What should we be doing? And can you promote it?
Hate to put you on the spot, but it's kind of important.
I mean, headphones.
Hashtag
We're
done.
headphones.
We're
You
done.
hear it.
We're done.
Headphones, trending.
We'll tweet it out. In the meantime, Kal Penn, let's turn to what we just saw here.
Sure.
You know the First Lady. You know the President. What did you make of this speech? It seemed like there was a lot of love, a lot of emotion, a lot of personal appeal here.
Yeah, look, the First Lady has been around the country, talking to really folks that have been struggling with the economy, gotten jobs recently. She does a lot of work with Dr. Biden and military families, our troops that have been home from Iraq, a lot of families that can now serve openly because of Don't Ask, Don't Tell repeal. Obviously, she and the President feel passionately about marriage equality. These are things that don't just affect Democrats and Republicans, right? They affect all Americans, and that's not just a talking point for the Obamas. It's something they feel really strongly about. They shake hands with everyone. I know when I had the chance to work at the White House on youth issues, the President was adamant about making sure that I was not just talking to young progressives. I was also talking to young conservatives. He wanted to know what they were thinking. He wanted to know, what are their top issues, and their top issues were the same as young Democrats. It was things like jobs in the economy, financial aid, Darfur, access to health care, bringing their buddies home from overseas. So I think you saw a lot of that tone in the First Lady and what she was talking about, and it wasn't empty rhetoric. It was really her heartfelt emotion behind that.
Tell us, so you work with the young people. We hear so much about the fact that enthusiasm's gone. We heard Paul Ryan talk about the faded Obama posters. How can the First Lady and then the other folks who are going and speaking, obviously finishing with the President, get that energy back?
Well, so I actually reject that notion, and the reason I say that is that we were on the road in 07 and 08 and all these states around the country, and what you're seeing now is exactly the same as what I saw then. In fact, I've had rooms full of like 500 young people coming out to one of our surrogate rallies, registering to vote. And literally, while we're on stage with 500 people behind us, we do a press pull aside, and the journalists will ask, "Why do you think there's no excitement out there? Why do you think there's an enthusiasm gap?" And I'm sort of thinking, do you see the 500 young people behind me? Stick around for the Q&A, and they stick around for the Q&A, and out of 50 questions, maybe one is about a TV show. But the other 49 are about the president's policies, things that young people are dealing with. And I think that's a testament to, the youth vote is very nuanced. I don't buy for a second that they don't care. I think they're sometimes put off by all the spin, but they know exactly what the issues are, and they're asking about them when they have the opportunity.
We heard Paul Ryan last week conjure up this image, the apocryphal story, obviously, about the faded Obama poster hanging on the wall, the 20-something who comes back home and is wondering when they're going to be able to put the dream into reality. How much do you come up against that? Not that literal story, but that sense of, I put so much into that campaign 4 years ago, and I am struggling personally, and therefore it's tough for me to commit again.
Sure. I have not heard that in particular. What we have been hearing, and this is actually really nice to be able to talk to young folks about this, is the slow pace of change and how that's organized. So I think it was a Pew poll from about a year and a half ago that a very small amount of young people even under 35, know what a Senate filibuster is and why these days we need 60 votes to break a Senate filibuster, get a bill passed. So what they're frustrated with is actually the same thing I think the president is frustrated with, which is, why is Congress having such a slow pace? Now, look, the fact of the matter is it's good that we don't live in a dictatorship and that there is a balance between political parties and that things can't get done with
just mark
a magic
the record
wand.
For that does
right?
not want a king or a dictator.
No, we should not have a king. We shouldn't have a dictator. But given that, what we've been hearing is they wish that Congress and really all politicians would do a lot more for young people. And I remember when I was at the White House, we got a letter from about 150 student body presidents, literally from the most conservative to the most progressive, and they sent the letter to Speaker Boehner, to Harry Reid, and to the president. And they said, raise the debt ceiling, but no matter what you do, don't do it on the backs of young people. And we care very much about the American Opportunity Tax Credit, the $10,000 that you get to go to college. We care very much about student aid and health care, and please don't do this on our backs. And the president hopped on a conference call with them the very next day, and he said, I got this letter. I wanted to talk to you guys really candidly. Didn't announce it to the press or anything like that. And I think that sort of shares a little more about how nuanced their opinions are, that they are frustrated with the pace of what our friends in Washington are doing, but they still rely on the president. And I think a lot of them were happy that he took the time to actually take a call with them and to listen. And he was, I was behind the scenes for that call. I was sitting right next to him, and he was the one that was like, we need to do this phone call. We need to at least talk to these guys.
Okay, so random little question. We just have to
all right.
On the ABC political team is Michael Falcone,
yes.
who says that you were
I was his RA. Absolutely true.
All right, so what can you tell us about a young Michael Falcone? He said there are no bad stories and that the two of you were actually spending more time in the study lounge than anything else.
It's true. Falcone was awesome. He was one of my favorite residents. No disrespect to the other folks that might be tuning in, but no, he was great. He and I became good friends through the process, and we would study. I was in RA, right? So I had limited study time. Whenever I would study, he was in the study lounge with me. So we were two UCLA dorks who studied a lot. It's really not a glamorous story for you.
But look where you can succeed. Look what you can turn into, right?
Yes, absolutely.
UCLA dork net. Then
#sexy
star
face,
now.
you get that right.
#sexy face
And-
or #UCLA dork.
But,
yeah,
but our hashtag is headphones. We are going to get this trending somehow. We know he's got power. He's proven that already. We've got more than a dozen tweets already. It's gonna pop. Are you feeling it?
I'm feeling it a little bit. Yeah.
You fired up?
I am very fired. After the first lady speech, you kidding me?
We're ready to go for
Yes.
this hashtag. All right, Calped, actor, activist, former White House official, sometime host and Twitter sensation. We appreciate you being with us. And
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks
I really
a lot.
appreciate it.
Really appreciate you
time to
coming
be on
by.
here.
A lot
Thank
of
you.
fun. Okay, so we are going to be right back here. Amy and I will be back at 5 o'clock tomorrow for our Gavel In show. We'll be back with our streaming coverage at 7 o'clock. Of course, you can watch it all abcnews.com, yahoonews.com, YouTube, on your various mobile devices. And here is a wrap of the best of the Democratic National Convention, Day 1.
When your country is in a costly war with our soldiers sacrificing abroad, and our nation is facing a debt crisis at home, being asked to pay your fair share isn't class warfare, it's patriotism.
The Democratic women of the House are ready to join President Barack Obama to move America forward.
1 in 100 children are born with a congenital heart defect. President Obama is fighting for them. He's fighting for families like mine.
Whose judgment, whose values do you want in the White House when that crisis lands like a thud on the Oval Office desk? That's right, a person who said in 4 words, let Detroit go bankrupt, or a president who had another 4 words, not on my watch.
But this fight became bigger than Lilly Ledbetter. It's about women and men. It's about equality and justice.
My message is this. It's time for Democrats to grow a backbone and stand up for what we believe.
With the wisdom of our founders and the values of our families, America prevailed. With each generation going further than the last, America prevailed. And with the opportunity we build today for a shared prosperity tomorrow, America will prevail. It begins with re-electing Barack Obama. It begins with you. It begins now.
For Barack, success isn't about how much money you make. It's about the difference you make in people's lives. We must work like never before. And we must once again come together for the man we can trust to keep moving